Hello and welcome to the Embrace Your Destiny podcast. My name is Sandra Dawes and I'm your host. And if you're new to the podcast, the Embrace Your Destiny podcast is all about sharing the experiences of women who have been through a challenging time in their life, but they also have come through on the other side of that, and they're here to share their stories with the hopes of inspiring others and letting them know that there is hope and there is a way to get through to that other side of the tunnel. And today my guest is Daria Tsvenger, and she's a mindset expert and host and creator of a self-discovery program, The Dream Sprint. My goodness, my apologies. Her work has helped hundreds of people tap into the power of the brain to gain clarity and turn their dreams into reality. Daria shared her expertise on TV shows such as Good Morning La La Land, Simulation, and major publications like ThriveGlobal, Voyage LA, and more than 30,000 passionate dreamers are following Daria's work. And when you come back to the show notes, you can learn more about Daria and where to find and connect with her on social media as well. So welcome, Daria.
Hi, Sandra. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Thanks for being here. So why don't we just jump right in and get started with you sharing the piece of your journey that you'd like to share with us today?
Yes, my pleasure. And I deeply resonate with the topic of this podcast because, all of us humans, we are going through challenging times in life, but sometimes it's really hard to open up, to be vulnerable, and to talk openly about that. When I was going through my challenges, I didn't want to talk about that because it was so vulnerable, so afraid. But now finally, when this chapter is closed and when I, got myself out of this, I'm able to share this openly and vulnerably in hopes that somebody who goes through the same thing will benefit from it. So my story goes this way. I was born and raised in Siberia in Russia. It's like this furthest and coldest part that everybody jokes about. I was, pretty normal girl. All was normal. I was, going to school. Then I went for studies to Moscow, won scholarship, and all of this were lining up just fine. But then at some point, my life turned out this way that for family reasons, I was kind of like not forced, but kind of like obliged to move to another country. And I thought that moving to another country, and I'm talking about the United States, it's really easy. It's an easy piece of cake because I used to live abroad before, like in Asia and Europe. So I thought this would be like really easy. So I went to the United States with my husband, and he was building his tech company at that time. And I thought that everything would be just perfect because, I'm married, everything's fine. My husband has a really good job and all these things. And I could have just done nothing and still be fine. And I thought that I would be fine. But when I moved, I started to experience this severe existential crisis because I had nobody to talk to. I had no family or friends whatsoever. And I was basically locked in the country for quite an extensive period of time because of all this documents processing stuff. So I couldn't go anywhere. And I was literally like sitting at my apartment all alone every single day without any understanding how I can contribute in this totally new for me environment. And everything that I've done prior to that point of my life seemed for me really non-meaningful because everything that I've done in Russia was, I was using the language a lot of my work because I used to be a TV host. I used to do all these public things. But when I moved to the United States, my English was not so good. And I felt really, really unconfident to pursue anything. So I was like ready to settle for like volunteering jobs and like internships, although I was already an established professional. And this really affected my personality because I started on this negative cycle, and basically I got myself into depression where I was waking up every single day with no energy, with no desire to do whatsoever. I was crying in the middle of the day for no reason. I could, burst into tears in the middle of a dinner in the evening, like in front of everybody, all my husband's friends, because I was feeling so bad inside. And at some point, I was really shocked with what was happening to me, and I realized that this is not normal. And I started this journey of uncovering and discovering what's going on with me. And I went a little bit on the medical route, and they told me that I'm depressed and that I should probably just take pills and everything will be fine. But I knew that this is not even an option, because from the background where I'm coming, my mother is functional medicine doctor back in Russia. So I didn't even have this option in my mind to take pills for anything, basically, because I understood that it would really damage my system, these foreign chemicals. So I decided to go a different route and to learn how my brain works and why do I feel what I feel and why do I do what I do. And on this journey, I started to discover that our brain is basically a very ancient machine, that it's really like thousands of years old. And our brain really thrives on misery. So our brain loves to find what's going on wrong and what can possibly go wrong. And it takes an effort to put yourself together. And because I had circumstances that negatively affected my sense of identity, my self-identification, and I didn't have any tools to cope with that, I got myself into this very, very dark place. So on this journey, I started to use tools that helped me to understand how my emotions are produced. Why do I feel the way I feel? And all in all, I met people who were in the same exact position. Basically, when we as humans, we are going through different life transitions. And for some people, it's moving countries. For some people, it's changing relationships. For some people, it's changing jobs. And all sudden changes that happen to us, and not the changes that we decide to imply in ourselves, our brain is not really designed to cope with that. But we can train ourselves to cope with that if we realize how the brain works, and that how to train it to basically find advantage in the most devastating circumstances that happen in life.
Absolutely. I feel like when you develop a gratitude practice, right, when you can train your brain to shift perspective, like when you're not feeling good about something or you're not in a positive headspace, that you do have a choice and you can always look for, as Esther Hicks says, a better feeling thought, right? That there's always that opportunity. But like you say, when you're going through something challenging, like for me, it was the loss of my father that shifted everything for me and left me in that headspace of feeling very depressed and not wanting to do anything and wondering what the purpose of life was anymore. And same thing, getting told, suggested that I should try antidepressants and that sort of thing. But knowing that for me, I just knew that it wasn't that I was suffering from a chemical imbalance, much like you. I just didn't have the tools to cope with what I was going through at that time. And so I think that it is so important to have access to those tools and know that they're there when you are going through those challenging times, for sure.
Yeah, and I also learned that there are a lot of confusion around like the tools that we can do internally, that we can use internally, and the external factor. Because basically the major tool that we have in our arsenal is the action. So whatever brings us to inspired action, this is where the life is. Because when we feel depressed, when we feel bored, we basically don't have any energy to act. So I found this indicator, kind of like using the action as the indicator, pretty powerful. So if I use some internal tool and I felt that I want to do more externally, I have the energy to act, this is how I understood that I was on the right path. Was it the same for you, Sandra?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's one of the big lessons that I've learned for sure. Daria, what would you say is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout this journey so far?
You're asking what was the biggest lesson that I've learned?
Yes.
Yeah, so the biggest lesson is that our brain doesn't want us to be happy. And it finds all the reasons for us to feel really bad the majority of the time. And it's because of the ancient survival mechanisms that are engraved in our brain. Because our ancestors, they were literally like surviving every single day, and physical survival was at the forefront of our body and brain. This is like the purpose of life, to survive. But nowadays we have less physical threats. We live in relatively safe world where we are not worried about if we are going to be killed like today or tomorrow. And the new set of challenges, they come up. For example, like challenging relationships at work, or bad emails that come in, or like bad news that come in. So all our threats right now are mostly psychological threats, but our brain perceives them as physical threats. So it literally, that's why when we feel agitated, when we feel depressed, we can feel it in our bodies, because our bodies react as they are ready to fight. So this was my biggest kind of like oh my God, the happiness is not the thing. This is my job.
Right. Yeah. And that it's amazing how the mind can build up things to be so threatening, so devastating, and then to realize that it really is just all an illusion, something that has been created in the mind, and it really doesn't have the power that we give it. It's a great place to get to that realization.
Yes.
Daria, what are some of the most helpful tools that you've used to get you through this journey, to get you out of that depression that you were feeling?
Yes, great question. The first question that I started to ask myself, and I found really hard to answer this question, is, Daria, what do you really want? Like everything aside, what do you really want? And I was talking to myself like I would talk to a little girl. And I saw this child within me, which, had the dreams and aspirations. And at some point in life, adult life came, and I basically gave up on these things. And this question literally, it brought me alive. But I couldn't find the answer right from the beginning. That's why I went deeper, and in order to see, kind of like, imagine that your truth is kind of like the diamond within the rock. So in order to find this diamond and to see this, you should peel these layers of rock in order to understand that it's there, and to see what form is it, what color is it, and all of these features. So I was cutting these layers of stones that I don't need, that were on top of me. And I was doing this by figuring out what I was most afraid of, figuring out what do I believe in, and why should I believe it, and is this beneficial for me to believe this thing? So basically, I used the cognitive behavioral therapy technique of questioning every single thought that I had, literally writing it down and questioning it like I would question somebody else who were foreign to me. And it took time, but it helped me a lot, first of all, to deassociate myself from the thoughts that I had and relate to them, not as I would relate to myself, but as I would relate to something else outside myself. Right.
And I feel like you're reminding me a lot of A Course in Miracles. I'm not sure if you're familiar with A Course in Miracles, but I feel like the 365 lessons that are part of the book are really all about helping you to rewire your mind and realize that you are not your thoughts, and that there is that separation, and what that can mean for your life when you choose to take that step back and not feel that association to your thoughts and the things that you're seeing and experiencing.
Yeah, I haven't read The Course in Miracles. I definitely heard about this book. And what I essentially find, like, the more I go, because I love kind of like bridge spiritual world and science world, because science is now at the place where it can explain a lot of things. And because I have really developed logical part of my brain, I need the proof in order to resonate with concepts. So I think the formula for a happy life, it's one. It's the same, kind of like the God, the universe, it's one, but just the form that it takes, it's different, and different form resonates with different people. But we all basically meet each other at one place.
Yes, absolutely. Daria, what advice would you give to somebody who is going through something similar in their own life? Whether it's that they did just move to a new country, or they're going through something else that has left them wondering what their real purpose is and where they go from here.
Yeah. My first advice is, do not worry about what your purpose is. I find this really confusing to see all these messages: find your passion, follow your passion, do what you love. But sometimes we really have to do boring things, and we really have to do what we have to do. It's not just, unicorns and roses in life. And it's fine. Like, if something is boring and not interesting and not inspiring, but you still have to do this, let's flip the table and actually not doing what you love, but love what you do. Flip the model. And if you have to do something, love this. Because at the end of the day, anything, it doesn't have a lot of difference, because we humans, we live on this planet for like 100 years, something max. And then, but the planet exists like for billions of years. So, and there are billions of stars in our universe, and sun is just one star. And so I'm sure that there is so much life outside our universe and even outside Milky Way galaxy. So if we think about it this way, if we are literally like a little thing in the universe, and it's like all the things that do not matter a lot, they matter in our body, in our brain, but at the same time, there is no reason to put such a pressure on ourselves. There is no reason to do that. And when you kind of like zoom out, and I love to imagine how like I am as my soul or my spirit or whatever, how I'm zooming out from our planet, and I start to see other planets, and I start to see, other celestial systems. And in this moment, I realize that whatever I'm worried about, it doesn't make sense. Nothing would majorly change. The universe, will have its cycles, and it would still be.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that you can struggle with when you are going through a challenging time is, where you're in your depression or in your head a lot at that point too, is that you can forget that the world is still spinning. That that even though the world seems to have stopped for you, or not been, or it's not going to ever be the same, that it is. It's just that it's just a different experience for you as an individual. And I think that that's sometimes where we struggle when we're going through those dark times.
Yes, this is very true.
Daria, any other final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes. My major, not advice, but like wish for you is to don't take yourself seriously. So healthy humor and healthy irony in life really helps to go through challenging times. And putting things into perspective also helps. And please know that you are, as a human being, you are already enough. And it doesn't matter if you build $1 billion company or if you're not, all these things that you measure yourself upon, they do not matter as much. But what matters is how you feel inside yourself. So whatever you do on the outside, it also matters a lot, but only to the extent of how you feel on the inside. And please ask yourself, what do you want? And find the spark. And it's not about, finding the passion and following it. It's like, what do you want? Not only from work, but what do you want from your habits? What do you want from your relationships? What do you want from your contribution to society? So think about the spheres of life that you have and ask, what do you want? And the more you ask yourself this question, the more you put yourself in the position of responsibility and choice, because you always have, happy people are responsible people. They are responsible for their happiness. They are not going into the victim realm where they blame everything around themselves. So catch yourself, what role are you playing into your life, take responsibility, and do whatever you can with the resources you have.
I think that's really good advice. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So for our listeners, if you are looking to learn more about Daria and the other places that you can find her on social media, as well as to learn more about what she's up to and the different programs that she offers, you can find those in the show notes. And Daria, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
To my listeners, we will see you in a couple weeks. Take care.